Welcome to the series of lecture on finite element analysis. In this part, we are going to derive the element characteristic equation for the plane elasticity problems what we discussed in the last part. In the last part of the lecture, we have discussed about the three-dimensional stress element which is used for defining the three normal stresses and three shear stresses. So in any three-dimensional problem, we have to consider the three normal stresses sigma xx, sigma yy, sigma zz, and the three shear stresses tau xy, tau yz, tau zx like this. And we have discussed how to denote this normal stress as well as the shear stress using this three-dimensional stress element. And we have discussed how to derive the stress strain relationship matrix for the three-dimensional element also. So this is the three-dimensional stress matrix, and in the right hand side we have strain matrix. To relate the stress and strain, we have this 6 by 6 square matrix. This is called a constitutive matrix or elasticity matrix or stress strain relationship matrix. If you want to solve problems using the finite element method, normally we try to reduce the three-dimensional problem into 2D or 1D. For that, we have discussed three plane elasticity conditions which are used to reduce a three-dimensional problem into two-dimensional problem. Plane stress condition, plane strain condition, and axis symmetry condition. Based on the geometry, load acting on the component, and material property boundary conditions, we can eliminate any one of the direction or coordinate of the three-dimensional problem. In that way, we can reduce the 3D problem into 2D. This is the concept of plane elasticity. Plane stress condition. When to apply this plane stress condition for the practical problem? If the body has very small thickness, if it is a thin body and the load is acting along the plane of the body, then we can call it as a plane stress condition. This is the example. Most of the structural brackets and sheet metal components are solved by using these plane stress conditions. Here this is the constitutive matrix D for the plane stress condition. We can evaluate sigma x, sigma y, and tau xy using this constitutive matrix that we have discussed earlier. And similarly for plane strain condition, when to consider the plane strain condition for the engineering problem means if the body has a very large thickness and the load is acting along the thickness direction, that is the Z direction. This is called out of plane loading. This is the example we have discussed a masonry dam and pipeline in which fluid passing through the pipeline. So all these are our example for the plane strain condition. Here also we can solve for sigma x, sigma y, and tau xy using this constitutive matrix. So for plane stress condition and plane strain condition, we have different constitutive matrix that we have to understand. And for axisymmetric condition, this is slightly different from these previous two condition. Here we are going to evaluate three normal stresses: radial stress, hoop stress, axial stress, and the shear stress along the RZ plane. Now for this axisymmetric condition, if you see the constitutive matrix, it is a 4 by 4 matrix, not like plane stress and plane strain condition. So in case of plane stress and plane strain condition, we are going to have only 3 by 3 matrix for the D matrix. So here it is a 4 by 4 matrix. Solving the axisymmetric problem is slightly different from the plane stress and the plane strain condition problem. So that also we will discuss in the later part. Here I am showing some practical examples under the plane stress condition and a plane strain condition. So you can have any structural bracket like this which is fixed at this end, the load is acting at the free end. Then we can do the analysis of this type of structural bracket only by considering the section plane. So we can model the section plane alone with all the details, geometrical details, and here the thickness of the element is considered as uniform thickness. So here for discretization they are using the triangular element only. And similarly for this example, if you want to find out the stress concentration of a plate in which we have a circular hole like this, for this type of problem we are using only the symmetrical, half symmetrical condition. That is why we have a plate like this. We can easily find out the stress concentration here. For this problem also they are using the triangular element, you can see. This is the example of plane strain problem. This is a long cylinder subjected to internal pressure. This is the example for plane strain. Here also we are considering only the cross section of the pipe which is subjected to internal pressure. So this is a plot showing the radial stress distribution of the pipe which is subjected to internal pressure. In plane stress, plane strain or axisymmetry, we are going to model only a sectional plane. That sectional plane going to be discretized by using the two-dimensional element. It may be triangular or rectangular element. Then for each case we are assuming the thickness of the element is uniform. That you have to remember correctly. Here also the thickness is uniform. This is also thickness uniform. So when you model this type of pipeline in the cross section, here also you can assume thickness is uniform. It's a plane strain condition. Axisymmetric condition is slightly different. In axisymmetric we have discussed that the constitutive matrix is 4 by 4 and we are evaluating the 3 normal stress and 1 shear stress. The axisymmetric we will discuss separately. So here we are going to derive the element characteristic equation for plane stress and plane strain problem. The same is applicable for axisymmetric problem also with a slight modification that we will see in the later parts. Mainly we are going to concentrate on the plane stress and the plane strain problem for the forthcoming parts of lecture. In the earlier part we derived the shape function for a two-dimensional linear triangular element n1, n2, n3. These are the three shape functions used to define the field variable inside a triangular element like this. Phi of xy can be interpolated by using n1, n2, n3 and the parameters. Nodal parameter pi 1, pi 2, pi 3. By using this shape function we have solved some simple scalar variable problem also. Now we are going to use the same two-dimensional linear triangular element for solving the vector problem. What is the modification we are going to do? Let us see. Now vector variable problem using the same two-dimensional triangular element. Here when you say vector quantity, so displacement, strain, stress all are vector quantity we are going to deal. So this vector quantity has both magnitude and direction. How to solve this type of vector variable problem? By using the two-dimensional elements. Here I am showing the two-dimensional. This is the two-dimensional triangular element. At each node, when you take this local displacement, which is a vector quantity, so here it may have some direction like this, and here at node 3 it may have some direction, let us say displacement. So displacement here it represents the deformation of the body. So in FEA we are using the term displacement. Actually in strength of material we are calling it as a deformation of the body which is subjected to external force. Now these are the actual displacement taking place at each node. Each displacement has its own direction, that is different direction. So how to solve this type of problem? How to assemble various elements to get the global characteristic equation? So the same idea we discussed in the truss problem. I think you can remember that this local displacement can be replaced into components of displacement along the x direction and along y direction. In all the nodal points we are going to resolve this local displacement along x direction and y direction. The displacement along the x direction is denoted by u. Displacement along the y direction is denoted by v. So at each node we will have the component of displacement along the x direction u1, component of the displacement along the y direction v1 like this. Here we will get u2 v2 u3 v3. When we use this type of global coordinate system, here we are using global coordinate system. When you resolve the vector quantity which is a displacement along the x and y direction, then we can easily group or assemble all these displacement components along the x direction, along the y direction, like that we can easily group or assemble, right? For that purpose we are using these components of this local displacement along x and y direction. Here for the vector variable problem, the same triangular element at each node will have 2 degrees of freedom, u1 v1. Each node we have 2 degrees of freedom. So what is the total degree of freedom here? Total degree of freedom is 6. Now if you want to find the displacement of a point which is inside this element, right? Let us say p of x comma y. If you want to find the displacement, we have to find what is the displacement along the x direction, displacement along the y direction. So displacement along the x direction we are going to define as u of x comma y. Displacement along the y direction we are going to say v of x comma y. So how to determine this one? By assuming the interpolation function. Initially we will assume a bilinear polynomial trial function, what we did in earlier part also. So we are assuming a bilinear polynomial separately for u displacement, separately for v displacement. Now we are going to find the shape functions for u, displacement component u, displacement component v. That we will see in the next slide. Before that, we are going to give a different name for this triangular element. In case of the linear triangular element, when we use y linear triangle, we are using the bilinear polynomial here. So that is why it is called a linear triangular element. Now when you say u and v are defined by bilinear polynomial, when you find the strain is nothing but first order derivative of the displacement. So strain along the x direction is nothing but dou u by dou x. So dou u by dou x will be simply a1, because a0 will be 0, a2 will be 0, you will get only a1 here. Similarly dou v by dou y, strain along the y direction, normal strain. Here also we will get b0 0, b1 x 0, b2, this coefficient only we will get. Similarly, if you find the shear strains, dou u by dou y, you will get a2, dou v by dou x, you will get b1. So all these strains we are getting the constant, a1, b1, a2, b2 are nothing but constants. When we use this type of bilinear polynomial, or when we use this linear element to solve the problem, our strain is going to be constant in all the direction, x direction as well as y direction, and shear strain. So when the strain is constant, we are going to say this element is a constant strain triangular element, or otherwise simply we will say CST element. So what is CST element? Constant strain triangular element. That means when we use this type of CST element, we will get a strain constant. If strain constant means stress will be constant. So what is the drawback of this CST element? When we use this element in this triangular area, we don't get any variation in the strain or stress. That is the drawback. So if you want to increase the accuracy of the solution, we cannot solve the problem by using this CST element. We have to go for the higher order element. What is higher order element? Instead of using the bilinear polynomial here and here, we can use the higher order terms, right? So we can add a3 x square plus a4 y square plus a5 xy, like that. So when you add the nonlinear terms, then we will get the strain. First will be linear strain, that is called a linear strain triangular element. If you increase the strain variation, we can go with a higher order polynomial, then we will get the strain variation will be quadratic and cubic like that. That is what we have to understand. When we solve the problem by using this type of linear element, we have to sacrifice some level of accuracy. That understand, this is the finite element method, because approximate method only. So what is CST element? In this element, the strain along this element will be constant. Why? We are using the linear polynomial to define this one. So that you have to understand. Now coming to the shape functions. Now we will use this boundary condition as we did in earlier part. Node 1 we have u is equal to u1, similarly v equal to v1. Node 2 you have u2 v2. Node 3 we have u3 v3. So by using these three we can get the three equation. Similarly by using this nodal coordinate we will get three equation. When we try to solve these three equation, I think you will remember the earlier procedure. We will end up with the same set of shape function for u displacement and also v displacement. So we will have the common shape function for the u displacement and v component displacement. n1, n2, n3. For defining u x comma y, we will get n1 u1 plus n2 u2 plus n3 u3. For v component of displacement, n1 v1, n2 v2, n3 v3. n1, n2, n3 are common shape function used for u and v. Therefore, we are going to have only three shape functions. Even though the degrees of freedom for this element is 6, right? Degrees of freedom is 6, but we are getting the three shape functions which are applicable for both the u component of displacement and the v component of displacement, that you have to understand. So by this way we are going to simplify our job. Now what is our aim here? First we are going to establish the strain and displacement relationship, right? For that only we are deriving this shape function. Now we can write the displacement matrix. Once you know the u and v in terms of n1, n2, n3, we can write in matrix form the delta. Actually delta is represented in local displacement, but here we resolved in u and v component. So it will be like this: n1, n2, n3. You have to remember always this global displacement matrix should be written like this. This will be 6 by 1 matrix. Size of the matrix is 6 by 1. Why we are keeping like this, we will understand in the next slides. First we have to know the degree of freedom first node u1 v1, degree of freedom for the second node u2 v2, degree of freedom for the third node. So you have to remember always the u matrix here is written like this, 6 by 1 size. Accordingly we are writing this matrix. So this matrix will be 2 by 6. So then only we will get matrix u and v. So now after knowing this displacement matrix, we are going to define the strains. Based on that strain we can establish strain displacement relationship. Let us see. Again we are going to use the strength of material formula. Normal strain and shear strain. How it is defined? Normal strain epsilon xx, strain along the x direction. It is defined as dou u by dou x. What is u? U is n1 u1, n2 u2, n3 u3. So you will get dou n1 by dou x, where u1 is the nodal displacement constant. Dou n2 by dou x, so u2 nodal displacement. Dou n3 by dou x, then u3, like that we are writing. What is epsilon yy? Strain along the y direction, normal strain. So dou v by dou y, this is the definition. So substitute v. V is n1 v1, n2 v2, n3 v3. That is why we are getting dou n1 by dou y, dou n2 by dou y, dou n3 by dou y. What is the definition for shear strain? It is dou u by dou y, dou v by dou x, right? So this we have to remember. So now substitute the expression for u and the expression for v. We will get dou n1 by dou y u1, dou n1 by dou x v1, dou n2 by dou y u2, dou n2 by dou x v2, dou n3 by dou y u3, dou n3 by dou x v3. I am writing the equation in the order u1 v1, u2 v2, u3 v3, like that. Then only we can combine these three strain in matrix form. You will see when you write all these three strains in the matrix form, what is the dou n1 by dou x value? N1 is alpha 1 plus beta 1 x plus gamma 1 y, right? That is what we defined here. N1, when you differentiate N1 with respect to x, you will get only this beta 1 by 2a. When you differentiate this N1 with respect to y, we will get gamma 1 by 2a we will get. So dou n1 by dou x is equal to beta 1 by 2a, dou n1 by dou y equal to gamma 1 by 2a. Similarly, dou n2, dou n3 we can find it out. That is what written here. Dou n1 by dou x equal to beta 1 by 2a, then dou n2 beta 2 by 2a, n3 beta 3 by 2a. Similarly, for dou n1 by dou y, we will get gamma 1 by 2a, dou n2 by dou y, gamma 2 by 2a, dou n3 by dou y, gamma 3 by 2a. Now we are arranging all these terms in matrix form. Here we are getting the strain matrix, it is a 3 by 1 matrix. Now we are going to relate the strain with the displacement. So here we are writing the displacement matrix, which we already discussed. It is always 6 by 1 matrix. Now to connect this 3 by 1 and 6 by 1, we have to have this 3 by 6 matrix. So we are going to write this one. 1 by 2a is taken common. So first row we have beta 1 0, beta 2 0, beta 3 0. Then only we will get beta 1 u1, beta 2 u2, beta 3 u3. That will be correctly multiplied. So this row, beta row, and the next one for epsilon yy. So gamma should be multiplied with v, right? Here beta should be multiplied with u. That way we are arranging the terms. But the third row is for shear strain. Here the beta and the gamma will interchange its position. So in this one we are writing gamma 1, here beta 1, then gamma 2, beta 2, gamma 3, beta 3. So this matrix going to be called as gradient matrix or strain displacement matrix, which relates the strain and the displacement. How we are getting this strain displacement matrix? By using the two-dimensional linear triangular element, which is called a constant strain triangular element. Based on that element, we use the shape functions n1, n2, n3 to define the displacement u, v. Then we are getting this strain displacement matrix. That you have to remember. Now in the earlier part, we derived the stress strain relationship matrix D, constitutive matrix, right? Now we are going to use that matrix and this strain displacement matrix to get the final element characteristic equation. Let us see. Now stress displacement relationship we can establish. Sigma stress matrix D is a constitutive matrix multiplied by strain matrix, which we have discussed in the last part. Right, this is the Hooke's law for two-dimensional. Now we derived epsilon is equal to product of b and u. Now substitute that one, you will get sigma matrix is equal to d multiplied by b matrix multiplied by u matrix. Now what is the size of the sigma? Sigma we have the three component, sigma x, sigma y and tau xy. So it is a 3 by 1 matrix. We have to find the three stress components for the two-dimensional problem or plane elasticity problems, right? For finding this, we are going to multiply the two matrices D and B. What is the size of the D matrix? It is a 3 by 3 matrix. For first we are considering only plane strain and plane stress condition. So we will have 3 by 3 matrix. And the B matrix we know it is a 3 by 6 matrix. Just now we derived it is a 3 by 6 matrix. Now when you multiply these two, we will get a 3 by 6 matrix. This 3 by 6 matrix may be multiplied with this displacement matrix. Finally we will get a 3 by 1 matrix, which is a stress matrix. How this D matrix are explained in terms of E and nu. I think you remember that. In the last part we derived this one, D matrix, constitutive matrix. How the constitutive matrix is defined? By using the material property. E Young's modulus, nu is the Poisson ratio. For this matrix D matrix we are using the material properties to define. That is why in industries they will call it as a material matrix. D matrix is a material matrix. Now when you know the material property we can find the D matrix. What is B matrix? In the B matrix, we have beta 1, gamma 1 term. What is beta 1, gamma 1? We have defined the beta 1 and gamma 1 in terms of xy coordinate. We solved many problems also, right? So, this beta, gamma or this B matrix is defined in terms of geometrical coordinates. So, that is why in industry they will call it as geometric matrix. So, if you want to find the stress of a particular element, if you multiply the material matrix and the geometrical matrix, then we are able to find the stress value. So this is the first type of problem possible in the plane elasticity problem, right? Type 1, which is very easy to solve. Why it is easy, I'll tell you. Instead of doing the multiplication in this order, we can do it in the reverse order. That means we are going to multiply this U matrix first with the B matrix. So it is very easy because it is 6 by 1. So by multiplying this we will get a 3 by 1 matrix. This 3 by 1 can be easily multiplied with a 3 by 3. We can get easily the 3 by 1. So that is why this problem is asked. It is very easy to solve. Let us see the example problems in the next part. Now we will proceed to the element characteristic equation. To define the stiffness of the two-dimensional problem, the approach what we followed in earlier one-dimensional problem, same approach we can use here also. We have to first get the governing differential equation. That is, we will convert the physical problem into mathematical model. In that mathematical model, we will have governing differential equation. That governing differential equation will be considered as residual function. That residual function will be multiplied with the weight function and integrated over the domain equated to 0. That is called a Galerkin equation. Then by using the Galerkin equation, we will find the weak form of the equation. For that weak form, we will apply this shape function n1, n2, n3 and uv displacement. Then we will get the required element characteristic equation. At the end of that derivation, we will get a stiffness matrix expression, right? That expression for the stiffness matrix is nothing but in terms of D matrix and B matrix. The same expression we are going to use here also. But for your easy understanding purpose, how can we get those expression for the stiffness matrix? By using the concept of elastic strain energy. So here just we are spending some time how the expression for the stiffness matrix is arrived. Okay. So the same expression we can arrive by using the approach what we followed in the earlier weak formulation approach. That also we can follow, but here we can easily understand. That is why I am explaining this elastic strain energy approach for any linear elastic material. So within the elastic limit, it will follow the Hooke's law. When you apply any force within the elastic limit, it will regain its original shape, right, after removing it. That is the elastic property. Now when you draw the low displacement curve for this elastic material, if you measure the area under this low deflection curve, that is called a strain energy or resilience. Strain energy stored in the material during the deformation, right? Using the strain energy only, it will regain its original shape. Now how the strain energy is expressed in the low deflection curve, it is equal to, this is a triangular area, so we can write half into f into deflection, half into f into delta. This f can be replaced by k, stiffness of the material. So k is nothing but stiffness, f by delta. In the f delta, we are replacing f in terms of k, so we will get a k into delta as the f. So finally u will become half into k into delta square. This is the expression for the one dimensional problem. Same thing if you extend for the two dimensional, you have to write the delta in matrix form. Delta multiplied with k. Here k is going to be called as stiffness, and again we have delta, right? Now in this manner we are expressing the strain energy of a two-dimensional problem. There is a one more equation we can use to express the strain energy by using the stress strain plot. How to get the stress strain plot? You have to divide this force divided by the cross sectional area, it will give you stress. If you divide the deflection by original length, you will get the strain. So the same plot only we are plotting in different terms or different names, stress and strain, like this. Here when you take this area under the stress strain curve within the elastic limit, this is also indicating the strain energy. When you write the strain energy equation, again half into sigma into epsilon for the unit strain energy. Here we are multiplying with the volume for getting the total strain energy. Now what is sigma? Sigma is nothing but d multiplied with epsilon. That is we are using here the stress strain relationship. Again we are getting one strain matrix, right? Now what is the strain matrix? It is nothing but B multiplied with the delta displacement matrix. So here this D is taken here, this epsilon T, and we are rearranging, and this epsilon T is B transpose of del, because then only we can multiply the B and the B. That is why we are writing B transpose del transpose D, B into delta multiplied by V. Now we are slightly rearranging, we are taking the delta term outside and other terms inside, right, for comparison purpose. Now compare this equation with this equation. You'll see 1 by 2 delta k delta, here 1 by 2 delta this expression multiplied by delta. So by comparing this and this, we are going to say that K stiffness matrix will be equal to the product of B transpose D and B multiplied by the volume of the element V. So this is the expression for stiffness matrix. We are getting with a different approach, that's all, for easy understanding purpose. So if we use the same approach what we followed in the one dimensional problem, in that also we will get the same combinations of matrices. Here for easy understanding purpose I am using elastic strain energy approach. This is the K stiffness matrix, which is a B transpose D multiplied with B AT. What is AT? Volume of the element. A is the cross sectional area, triangular cross section. T is the thickness of the element. Okay. So here when you see the size of the matrices, B matrix size is 3 by 6. So transpose of this one will be 6 by 3, and D matrix always 3 by 3 for plane stress and plane strain condition. When you multiply these two, we will get a 6 by 3. This 6 by 3 matrix if multiplied with this one will get 6 by 6. Stiffness matrix size will be 6 by 6. Why? Because for this CST element we consider at each node we have 2 degree of freedom, U1 V1, U2 V2, U3 V3, right? Total degree of freedom is 6. That is why the size of the stiffness matrix is going to be a 6 by 6 matrix. If you know the B matrix, geometrical matrix, material matrix, we can easily find the stiffness matrix. Now this is going to be called as type 2 problem. They will ask you to find the stiffness matrix for the given element, right? This is second type. Here we have to multiply B transpose D first, then the resultant matrix will be multiplied with B. So it is a somewhat, compared to type 1, it is a lengthy problem that we will see in the forthcoming parts. Now how to select the D matrix? We have two D matrix, plane stress and the plane strain condition. How to determine which D matrix should be selected? That is based on the thickness of the problem or thickness of the element given in the question. If the thickness is given as 1 mm, which is a representation of the unit thickness of very large thickness of the member, right? For plane strain condition, say for example a dam problem and a pipeline problem, right? The thickness will be in terms of kilometers, right? So we are considering only the cross section of the dam wall or the pipeline. For that we will use only unit thickness. Okay, unit thickness. So if the thickness of the element is given as 1 mm, then we are going to select plane strain condition. Other than that, if the thickness is given as greater than 1 or less than 1, that is going to be considered as finite thickness. So this is called a finite thickness. For finite thickness, we can use the plane stress condition, because what is plane stress condition? For small thickness, we can assume the plane stress condition. That is why for any finite less than or greater than 1 thickness value, we can choose the plane stress condition. If it is a 1 mm thickness, then we are assuming it is a unit thickness specifying the plane strain condition. That we have to know when we solve the problem. Now we know the stiffness matrix, so straight away we can define the element characteristic equation in this way. K multiplied by U, which is equal to force, right? K is the element stiffness matrix and U is the nodal displacement matrix and F is the nodal force matrix. Now we know what is K and what is U also. U already we defined. U is U1 V1 degree of freedom for node 1, U2 V2 degree of freedom for node 2, U3 V3 degree of freedom for node 3, like that. Similarly, we can resolve the force component also along the x direction and y direction at each node. So here we will get F1x, F1y, F2x, F2y, F3x, F3y, right? In the force matrix also we will have 6 component of forces, 6 by 1 matrix. For node 1 we have F1x, F1y, node 2 we have F2x, F2y, node 3 we have F3x, F3y. So if you know this matrices K, how to find the K, this is the procedure. Then U, displacement, unknown displacement can be evaluated provided if you know the forces acting on the element. Now we can have two types of problem using this element characteristic equation. Either they may ask to find the unknown displacement in the element level. For the two-dimensional problem, we are going to solve only the element level, not at the structural level, because it will take more time to solve manually. That is why we are not going to use that type of problem. Either they may ask to find the unknown displacement for the given force, or otherwise they may ask to find the stresses developed in the element for this particular force acting on the member. So in that case, how to solve that problem? We have to first find the U, unknown displacement. Then using this U, we have to apply this U in the type 1 problem what we have seen the earlier. This is the type 1 problem. You have to substitute the U here to find the stress value. In the forthcoming parts, we will solve the problems type 1, type 2, type 3 I am telling here. So all the problems we will solve one by one. First we will complete the plane stress condition, plane strain condition, then we will go for the axis symmetry condition. In this part, we derived the strain displacement matrix B matrix, and by using the D matrix and B matrix we derived the stiffness matrix K. Then we established the element characteristic equation for the two-dimensional triangular element or CST element. Thank you for your passion listening.